Welcome back to the Hero Gauntlet, Sinbad edition. So let's look at our heroes. We have the first, the thrill-seeking, the king of the tides, Sinbad, versus the friendly, the spectacular, the sensational, Spider-Man. So let's look at Sinbad's deck. So Sinbad, remember, goes on his voyages and he increases his speed, but as well as each of those voyages gets stronger and stronger each time he fights. It gives him unique abilities after combat. Next, we have Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man has the Spidey sense ability where he's able to know what the value of his opponent's attack cards are when they come right at him. So he's able to prepare himself, but as well as he's got that mighty swinging kick as well as that great power. So this is how Sinbad's been doing so far. A few wins. Now see how he does against Spider-Man. So going into this, I'm using Vorpal Board here as my main interface for you guys to see tonight's game. I also had to play against myself. So this was a really interesting fight. I wasn't really able to get another player to jump into this one in time, but that's fine. So what we're going to do is see here, I'm going to just get my opening hand set up with Sinbad, and then we're going to get the opening hand set up with Spider-Man. You can see that I kind of placed the porter on that blue space that's kind of, I guess you could say, somewhat flanks that entryway to the gangplank onto his ship. Meanwhile, Spider-Man is over on the ship itself, as I kind of was able to determine their positions based on some dice rolls. So as you can see, I'm kind of placing Spider-Man's cards out there. You're going to be able to see them, but that's fine. For all intents and purposes, I tried to do the attacks and defenses as I would if I didn't know what he had. So I tried to do the best I can and try to make it a fair fight. So let's not wait any longer. Let's go into this fight between Sinbad and Spider-Man. So before I believe I even jumped into this, I tried to get a bit of a round tracker. So I ended up taking the health dial from the porter and kind of putting that onto the side as a way for us to kind of track how, the different rounds that are being played throughout the game, as well as for my own tracking purposes as well. So I put that onto there, so I'm kind of taking care of that. And we're going to put that on a nice one. And we're going to get started here. So I'm going to go and draw a card as I maneuver. And I want to kind of position myself somewhat blocking those gangplank entrances. So the thing is for me to have Sinbad at least be on one side and the porter to be on the other. There are ways for Spider-Man to get out of pins. He has a lot of ways to get out of pins. But I like trying to keep them a little bit more spread across the board. It gives me a little bit more options. And the porter has a decent number of access to Sinbad's cards. So I try to keep him somewhat close to Spider-Man as well. So I have them within a few spaces of Spider-Man. He's going to be able to come in and attack me, but I have a few defenses in order to try to stave off some of those attacks. So now it goes on to Spider-Man's turn for the first round, and he's going to try to come at me here. Looking at some of the attack cards and things he has available to him in tow, it is quite interesting to see what he's going to be able to try to use here. And I ended up going with the swinging kick, and that's going to be thrown right at Sinbad. Now I have to try to think about what type of attack might be coming my way in the first attack. And Toil and Danger is just a great defense no matter what you play. Really good against a first attack because he gets to move out of the way. But I have them reveal those to each other, and we see that we have a swinging kick hitting for our first attack. And now Sinbad's able to move first because of his defense stance. So now that he's getting attacked, he's going to move. And I'm trying to contemplate where I want to place him. Like, I'm okay with Spider-Man getting past me on the gangplank because I have the porter on that side. So I decide to move Sinbad up there. I leave him right next to Spider-Man in the hopes that he would try to move me away, in which he did. But that way, at least I'm not incredibly far away from him. I can potentially get closer as time goes on. So we have a nice big attack from Spider-Man that kind of pushes me out of the way. Now it goes back to Sinbad's turn. So here we are. I got Toil and Danger in my hand. I have a few options with the Porter too, but I'm already full up with cards in my hand. I don't need really to draw more cards. So what I end up doing is I just discard and boost with the regroup to basically get right up next to Spider-Man to keep that pressure on him. And I decided to move up the Porter. Probably wasn't my best option right now, because the Spider-Man can just fly away, and it would actually cost the Porter a lot of movement in order to get there. Because Spider-Man gets to know what the value is of the card that's coming at him for the defense, he knows that basically the only one value card that Sinbad has is Regroup. There are no other one value cards. So it ends up just, I was like, you know what? Just let him take it. You know, it's just 1 damage. I can heal back up if I need to. So Spider-Man's like, all right, sure, attack me. Draw 2 cards, fill up your entire hand. So this way, on your next turn, you're going to have to, overdraw going to that point in time. So that's what practically ends up happening. I go after him with Sinbad. I deal the 1 damage. I'm able to draw the 2 cards for winning the combat with that regroup. Now, Sinbad's okay with filling up his hand and overflowing his hand. He just likes to have Voyages and other, cards he can dump into his discard pile if that's going to be the case. Now, Spider-Man has an option here. I'm left right next to him, and Spider-Man goes to that nice Thwip card. Sinbad's kind of like has a few options here. I'm kind of looking at what type of defense I would want to use. I decided to go with the Feint because I was hoping that it'd be something that would allow him to move around or do something like that. So what ends up happening is that he gets that Thwip card out. He's able to deal 2 damage to Sinbad. And then now he's... the thing is, though, is because it got canceled, he can't move into any other space in his zone. He's going to have to stay right there. So I have him end up maneuvering just to get away from Sinbad. So Sinbad can't potentially get a few attacks in on himself. And I get over onto that side. Now I'm going to be able to maneuver with Sinbad going into round 3. Now we have to kind of configure, what is this going to look like now? And I tried to get closer with the Porter. But I am able to at least get up right next to Sinbad with... get right next to Spider-Man with Sinbad. With my first Voyage card. I go after him. He plays the Wall Crawler that enables him to get into any other space in his zone. So he's going to be able to get out of dodge here if he needs to. And he's able to block all the damage coming from that first Voyage, which is kind of mostly expected for a first Voyage attack. It's mostly just to pull out a defense card, make it a little bit easier for you to be able to dish out lots of damage to your opponent later on in the game. And in all regards, that was pretty much a successful play there for me. I just really wanted to pull out another defense card from Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man is contemplating where he wants to move. I have the Porter and the Sinbad in pretty decent positioning. They're on either side of that gangplank. So the thing is that with Wall Crawler, I could have moved Spider-Man onto the other side, but I feel like on the other side, Spider-Man can get more easily trapped. So I tried to, have him more closer to the middle, because at least with the purples, I can fly around between the different sides of the gangplank with some of his abilities. So now we have a momentous shift going into an exploit. It does dish out a damage onto the Porter. And the thing is that I am going to be able to get a card back into my hand. But that was an attempt from Spider-Man to at least try to wipe out the Porter. The Porter is not like a devastating sidekick. It's just just another presence on the board that could be a little bit annoying to have to deal with. But the Porter doesn't typically have have much of a threat level against him, unless they have a commanding impact or a momentous shift after maneuvering that could potentially cause some damage. Now I go after him. I go after Spider-Man, who blocks my attack yet again, quite easily this time, and he blocks all the damage, and he's able to move to another space in his zone. He moves back into that corner, and I'm going to be able to draw 2 cards with the Porter's card ability, so I am going to be able to refill my hand at this point in time. Now, the question to be asked, though, is, what am I going to do now? Because now I have another action I have to perform, and I end up drawing another card with the maneuver, and now I have to find a card to discard in order to, because of the fact that I'm going to be going over my card limit. So I end up going to that point in time. I decide to discard my Fortune and Fate, which is my other 3-value Porter attack, and I am able to kind of reconfigure my hand here. I have 3 voyages in my hand. It's very advantageous for me to go after Spider-Man, and I tend to try to move Sinbad a little bit closer. Now that I got 3 movement as my base movement, I'm going to try to move him a little bit closer to Spider-Man. So Spider-Man now is going to maneuver, kind of get away a little bit on that side of the board, and just refill his hand. I really don't have any attacks with Spider-Man to be able to retaliate against Sinbad, so he's just basically trying to refill his hand and get into the other side of the board right there. Now, Sinbad is going to be able to try to get up next to him. I'm going to be able to draw to get up next to him, and I really need to try to burn some of these other Voyage cards out, so that way I can increase my movement as well as my damage potential. So, looking at what I have available to me, I go for the card discard because I'm just, see if I can at least get rid of some of his defenses. It's kind of like one of the biggest things is that I've been trying to get rid of his defenses as much as possible, because Spider-Man has some of the best defenses in the game. I tell him that my value is 2. And right now I'm contemplating, because I know 2 can mostly be a feint, or it could be or a voyage. So I end up throwing down the web shooters in the effort to try to avoid a lot of damage here. So what ends up happening now is that I have this attack going right after him. He's not going to take any damage because it's 3 against 3. But then I get to force him to discard a random card. I end up rolling a die. I had the 1 be the momentous shift, and momentous shift gets discarded at that point in time. And now we have 2 voyages over on that side, and we have 4 movement and potentially +2 to our attack value, which is going to be very, very difficult for Spider-Man to deal with, especially later into the game if I get rid of all his web shooters. Web shooters are going to be incredibly good against his voyages, but we'll see what happens here. So I maneuver and move Spider-Man onto the other side, and I end up moving Spider-Man again further away. Because I have no attacks with Spider-Man, I'm trying to, get the heck away from Sinbad. But I know that it's going to become increasingly difficult to do so as the game continues on. So as Sinbad, I need to keep the pressure on Spider-Man. I am a very aggressive deck when it comes to that. And I even move the Porter even closer on that side, even though I know that if he plays like another wall crawler or something, he's going to be able to get right away. Now, I end up going after him with another voyage. This one being the movement voyage. And Spider-Man ends up throwing down a counterpunch. Knowing that the value is a 2, there is a strong chance that the value may go up to a 4, which therefore would allow the effect on counterpunch to trigger to deal 2 damage back to me. So I get 1 damage onto Spider-Man, but Spider-Man gets 2 onto me. Probably not the best thing that could have happened there. I feel like I should have tried to go after him with the Porter and their commanding impact on that round, just to try to bait out those cards, so that way the Porter takes that damage and not Sinbad. But Sinbad is now down to 8 health. This is not looking good for Sinbad at this point. But Spider-Man now has some options for defense, but he doesn't really have many options available on offense. So we're going to see what kind of happens here. He's going to be able to get those spider senses tingling with that nice card that he was able to just draw, which is a 2-value versatile that could be actually useful on attack or defense. But essentially, the card's effect is if your opponent's card's value is 4, draw 2 cards. So it's really good for getting that additional card draw that you need to try to keep you in pace within the game. I end up moving Sinbad and the Porter closer and closer to Spider-Man, and I go for the Ape's Voyage. Now the Ape's Voyage, remember, deals 2 damage directly after combat. So what I end up doing is I kind of spin this over here, knowing that it was a 2-value. I throw out the counterpunch again with Spider-Man. And the factor of this is that Spider-Man's going to take 2 damage from that 5-value attack, but Sinbad's going to take 2 damage back to go down to 6 health now. So I'm pretty much just kind of putting myself in harm's way just to try to get some more damage onto Spider-Man. So this is where I'm kind of at a bit of a loss with Sinbad, because I only have 6 health left. I really have to play this a little bit more close to the chest here as I continue on. So going into this, because he only doesn't really have many attacks, this is actually very helpful for Sinbad. But of course, I'm playing as if I don't know that. I have an attack coming at me, and I figured that I probably would use my highest defense against this attack because I'm so low in health. So thinking that this could have been another swinging kick, I throw down an exploit to try to fight against the Spidey senses tingling, which is going to enable me to draw a card and not take any damage from this attack, which is huge. This was a huge interaction here. The thing is, though, is that he is going to be able to get 2 cards because of the Spider Senses tingling effect, which is going to give him more options in his hand for attacks and other things of that nature. So he goes and attacks me with the Spider Senses tingling. Now, what ends up happening is I have with Great Power on me, and Great Power is going to increase the attack value of Spider-Man, draw a card, and gain an action on top of that. So I have now more options. I have another action available to me to attack with. I got that big swing kick coming after Sinbad. I decide to use Leap Away, considering that this might be a big attack, and it is. I end up taking 2 damage from the attack, and because my effect does not resolve, it goes on to that. Now, it should have been 3 damage because of the +1 from with Great Power, and I did not trigger that on there, but it's not going to be incredibly devastating for the game going forward. But that is some big attack damage going into this, and we already have some low health totals going right into the halftime. We're going to interrupt the game at this point in time to give our halftime report. So as we can see with the stats, Sinbad hasn't been really dealing that much damage, as Spider-Man's been really just blocking everything his way. And Spider-Man getting some direct damage onto Sinbad, as well as some combat damage as well. So let's see how the game continues on. So going into this, Sinbad at 4 health. This is not looking good for Sinbad at this point in time. And Spider-Man has potential to heal, so we'll see what happens here. So Sinbad goes in and attacks Spider-Man with the Porter, and he goes in with a nice big commanding impact, which Spider-Man would have known was going to actually come his way. Even with the web shooters in his hand, he's able to block 3 of that damage and take 2 of it. to go down to 7. So now it's starting to look a little bit more dire straits for Spider-Man as well, as now we have the Porter that can potentially deal damage to Spider-Man, and Sinbad kind of sit in the back during this point in time. So as we kind of see here, I have Spider-Man basically starting to contemplate what their next move is going to be, looking at the different sort of spaces on the board. You know, what should Spider-Man do at this point in time? He's got 4 cards in hand. So what he ends up doing is he ends up going for his Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man card, which is going to allow him to heal for 3 health, and then be able to move to any other space in his zone. So to avoid being, you know, kind of pinned and cornered in there, he moves to that end of the green zone at this point in time. And I was contemplating actually maneuvering, but then I was like, you know what? I have a defense card available. They'll have to maneuver to get to me. And what I'm going to do is just end up getting 3 health and then maybe moving over to that one. So now I at least have some cushion of health. About a 9 health cushion, which is pretty big. And we move on to the 9th round. So as we can see here, I have to maneuver with Sinbad in order to get to him. This is fine for the Porter because the Porter's right nearby. And I have 6 movement. So it's going to be really difficult for Spider-Man to really get anywhere near Sinbad at this point. So I do end up going up and attacking Spider-Man with a Momentous Shift. And the last defense card, being Web Shooters, is able to block 3 of it, but 2 of that damage is going to get through and hit Spider-Man. So the thing is that, you know, this is starting to get really interesting. The Web Shooters are starting to be used up. 2 of the counterattacks were used up. So we only have 1 counterattack left. Oof. It's really going to be interesting here at this point to see what's going to happen. So Spider-Man, I have Maneuver to kind of refill their hand with at least a defense card, and then try to figure out where I would like to move him, but he actually just goes right after the Porter in response, and brings the Porter down to 3 hit points now with that disarming shot. But it was canceled, so he's not going to be able to get the card draw off of that, which is going to hurt Spider-Man a little bit at this point with only 1 card in hand. So now I fill up my hand. I have 7 cards against 1 card with Sinbad, and this is where things, I think, start to get a little bit dicey. So I still have a Momentous Shift in my hand. It would be preferable if I did leave Sinbad a little bit behind. So I am able to move the Porter around to that point, just to keep the Porter somewhat close if Spider-Man tries to get away. And I do a Momentous Shift against Spider-Man with the Porter, which is going to be able to deal some damage. I'm able to get 2 damage over the top of that, but he continues to block 3 damage on top of it as well. This has been a really tough fight going back and forth here. But what ends up happening is that we see Spider-Man now left with 1 card in hand, as Sinbad has 6. So things are starting to get a little dicey, a little bit more dicey here for Spider-Man. Spider-Man gets that swinging kick, but we know who he wants to use it against. He wants to use that against Sinbad. He wants to swing around and smack him in the face. But the thing is that he's going to move over to this back corner because I really need to refill that hand of Spider-Man. So try to make sure I have some more options available to me when I go in for attack. Now, I have the Whale Quest just drawn there from Sinbad. So I am going to be able to try to heal some hit points here. I am down to 4 when it should technically be 3 hit points. I don't end up fixing that, but I don't think it's going to be of any great impact going towards the end of the game here. But I am able to get up there to that point against Spider-Man, and I end up using the Whale Voyage. They throw down their 4-value Versatile, which is going to block most of that damage. Ends up blocking, that actually should have been, yeah, 2 damage that's dealt to them, and I end up healing 2 from that card. So that was pretty useful for me at that point in time. Now I'm back up to 6, and now Spider-Man's down to 7. So things are still looking a bit close here between Spider-Man and Sinbad. So let's see what's going to happen now with Spider-Man. Spider-Man tries to go in for the early attack here. Goes against Sinbad. Sinbad throws down Toil and Danger just to try to stay alive at this point. And I am able to take 3 damage. I would technically be down to 2 at this point. But I do move back around 3 spaces. And then he knocks me back even further because of the swinging kicks feature. So that is pretty big at this point in time. So let's see what's going to happen here. I have, we got Spidey senses tingling. We got that stuff going on. A 2-value versatile, but not a big defense against some of Sinbad's attacks. And I have to really kind of contemplate what I want to do here. I only have 3 health, but I really have to try to take a risk here and be aggressive because I'm losing cards in my deck. If I don't try to take them out now, I'm not going to really, live for that much longer. So I got to try to do something. So I end up moving the Porter over in that area in the mid of that sort of side of the map, just to keep him within line. And right now I have Voyage Home, which is a huge attack against Spidey. Spider-Man can only put down the 1 defense that they have, and they're going to take 5 damage and get down to 2 health. But they do draw 2 cards from the effect of the card to kind of refill their hand. And then for me, I'm going to be able to take all of the other voyages that are in the discard pile, and I'm going to be able to put them back into my hand. So this is some great options here I have with Sinbad that potentially be able to give me the chance to try to win this game. So I am able to move some things about here, get those cards off of the discard pile and back into my hand. But as you can see there, I have well over 7 cards. So I am going to have to start choosing between those cards about which ones I'm going to keep in my hand and which ones I'm going to throw back into the discard pile. I'm very low in my deck count as well, so I am kind of concerned about overdrawing and getting fatigued and having that have me lose the game. Now keep in mind though that the 3 health that I have with Sinbad should be 2 health. I should have 2 health at the current moment. And let's see here what I decide to do. Now I'm going to have to end my turn, and I'm going to have to discard some cards. So there are some voyages that you can get rid of, especially the Snake Voyage, which is not really helpful for you at this point in time. I guess you can see what your opponent can throw at you, but for the most part, it's kind of useless for me. Then I get rid of the Movement Voyage, so this way I at least have the card discard, the damage, direct damage dealing, and the healing as my 3 voyages that I have available to me at this current point in time. So now, looking into this, we see that Spider-Man has some attack potential, at least with Thwip and Disarming Shot. Comes after me with Disarming Shot. I have to figure out like a high defense against this, so I end up throwing down my Toil and Danger, and I take 1 damage. So technically, I should be at 1 hit point right now. 1 hit point! This is not looking good. Not at all. So I have to contemplate what I'm going to do here next. I have Spider-Man end up maneuvering to try to get out of the way, but at least kind of figure this point out about where I can actually place Spider-Man that might be advantageous to me. Now we're both down to 2 health, and the only defense I have 2 defense cards. I have 3 defense cards now that I can put out, but it's still going to be quite dicey. So let's see how Sinbad's going to do now onto their next turn. I get by Fortune and Fate. We're kind of seeing here a few things impacted here. It seems like it's a little bit tight here. I do want the Porter to really take on the very big brunt of these attacks and going after going after him. I end up using By Fortune and Fate mostly because I want to try to pull out some more defense cards. It's not going to be worthwhile for me with the card discard, so I need something that's going to do something that's going to help me out here. I decided to possibly go with Spidey Senses Tingling, but I only have 2 health, so I think it would make sense if I went for the highest defense option against this attack, which ends up being the, basically being the card where I can't draw, so it actually works out perfectly for me. So this way I can throw that down at Spidey, and he can prevent me from overdrawing, which is awesome. Now, going into this, we have 2 versatiles and an attack card in Spidey's hand. He could go after me with a nice big thwip to try to force me to take some damage, or go after me with a momentous shift, or do anything like that. Now, I think the contemplation is, what do I potentially have left in my deck that can possibly deal with that? I don't really have a lot of high-value defense cards, so they end up maneuvering, and now he wants to come right after Sinbad, and comes after Sinbad with a thwip card. Now, I have to, the only high defense card I have at this point is Feint, so I know at this point that Spidey is going to get the 2 damage onto Sinbad, bring Sinbad down to 0, which would technically be -1 at this point, and be able to win the game. Holy cow, what a close matchup there, folks. You can definitely tell that Spider-Man had an incredible amount of damage output, but as well as Sinbad. It was a very close game for that very big reason, but Spider-Man's direct damage that he's able to dish out with those defense cards was amazing. As you can see that the efficiency rating was relatively close because they were so close in remaining health at the very end. But going into this now, we can say that Sinbad is 2 for 1 with a loss against Spider-Man. Very close match, but now we can see that Sinbad can actually lose.